Good evening and welcome. Tonight we're going to be flipping through this book about Senegal, and we'll look at the pictures and I'll read to you some sections and learn some stuff. Here we go. Senegal. Cute. Little salt flat there, looks like, where they're collecting salt. Here we have a nice map of West Africa, so you can see where Senegal's located. You can see Dakar right there, the capital city, and all of the countries that surround it in West Africa. This is the city skyline of Dakar. You can see the Atlantic Ocean here. And this is the African Renaissance Monument, which is a really huge statue. It's the largest statue in Africa. And if you're like, it looks kind of small just by looking at this picture, let me show you. These are like large trees down here. It's a gigantic statue. And it is a little debatable because, it represents like all these wonderful things like African freedom and moving forward to a brighter future, all of those wonderful things that should be celebrated. But Senegal is a majority Muslim country, and the fact that these people are like barely clothed, save for like precarious strips of cloth, is a bit debatable, since that's like a huge no-no in Muslim culture. Also, the statue was made in North Korea, which kind of goes against all of like the ideals of freedom and what have you, but it is what it is. It's a gigantic statue. It is really neat, I suppose. Here you can see beautiful shoreline here, big long city along the beautiful ocean. I love this map. It's so cool. The geographic features of Senegal, and you can really see the difference between like the northern and middle half and the southern half down here. Let's read a bit about the Cape Verde Peninsula. A small protrusion of land juts out into the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Senegal. The Cape Verde Peninsula, or Cap Vert in French, is made up of a combination of volcanic offshore islands connected by a land bridge and marks the westernmost point of continental Africa. The French name means Green Cape, if we're going to be a little more grammatically correct. So named because the peninsula's climate produces a seasonally verdant landscape different from much of Senegal's interior. Positioned at the southern tip of the peninsula, which curves back to the southeast at its end, is the capital city of Dakar, which was established by the French in 1857. The city was built around one of West Africa's best natural harbors, which is now a major port. The peninsula is not to be confused with a separate island nation off the coast of Africa that, until recently, went by the anglicized name of Cape Verde. In 2013, the country officially switched to the Portuguese version of the same name, Cabo Verde. The Republic of Cabo Verde is a country of 10 islands, about 350 miles off the coast of Senegal. Cabo Verde and Senegal's Cape Verde were both named the same thing by the Portuguese explorers, who were the first Europeans to discover the locations in 1444. Of course, the indigenous people who lived in those places, the Lebu in Senegal, had their own names for their homelands. Here we can see the Kassoum River, the boats, this big, wide, beautiful river in southern Senegal. And let's read about the baobab, which in my last video we learned that Baobab is a really good trigger word if you whisper it. Baobab, baobab, baobab. I like it a lot. But anyway, the baobab tree is a distinctive feature in the West African landscape. Few villages are without an ancient baobab tree. Some estimated to be more than 1,000 years old. The long, spindly branches gave rise to a Senegalese myth that the devil uprooted the baobab and plunged it back into the ground upside down. The baobab can reach heights of 82.5 feet, and its huge barrel-like trunk often reaches more than 30 feet in girth, with a circumference of about 180 feet. Baobabs can also be found growing in some parts of India, although these do not grow nearly as tall as their African counterparts. The baobab tree is used for many different things in Senegal. The fruit is made into a drink, its pulp is used to cure circulatory disorders, and its shell is used as a container. Dead trees provide firewood. The wood has a light, spongy consistency that is useful in making canoes and fishing boats. The baobab also has several unique properties that have added to its mystique. Unlike any other tree, it gets smaller rather than bigger as it grows older. It is able to store water in its trunk and therefore is highly valued by desert dwellers. The bark of the baobab is reported to cure malaria, while the leaves are eaten or dried and powdered to make a substance to treat rheumatism and inflammation. The baobab, baobab, baobab. Some antelopes. And let's read more about World Heritage Sites. Since 1975, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, has maintained a list of international landmarks or regions considered to be of outstanding value to the people of the world. Such sites embody the common natural and cultural heritage of humanity and therefore deserve particular protection. The organization works with the host country to establish plans for managing and conserving their sites. UNESCO also reports on sites which are in imminent or potential danger of destruction and can offer emergency funds to try to save the property. The organization is continually assessing new sites to inclusion on the World Heritage List. In order to be selected, a site must be of outstanding universal value and meet at least one of 10 criteria. These required elements include cultural value, that is, artistic, religious, or historical significance, and natural value, including exceptional beauty, unusual natural phenomenon, and scientific importance. As of March 2018, 1,073 sites have been listed, including 832 cultural, 206 natural, and 35 mixed properties in 167 nations. This number is higher now because they added some in 2019. 7 are in Senegal, including 5 cultural and 2 natural sites. These include the stone circles of Senegambia, the Saloum Delta, the island of Saint Louis, the island of Gorée, and the Bassari country cultural landscapes, as well as the Juge National Bird Sanctuary and Niokolo Koba National Park. Here we can see a picture of Saint Louis, which is actually an island in the Senegal River. The caption says you can see the ocean in the distance there. Here are some of the stone circles of the Senegambia. Really fascinating stone circles. They're so cool. Very mysterious. This is a picture of the Mali Empire that Senegal was once a part of. You can see some of the major cities there. This is a drawing that was, or at least this takes place on Gorée Island. It's a French slave trader. Let's talk more about Gorée Island. Gorée Island. Africans have held and traded slaves throughout most of their history. Captives obtained in wars became the household slaves of rulers or were sold to Muslim traders. Generally, these slaves were well treated, much the same as any worker. Slaves were adopted into the household, as an intelligent and enterprising slave might marry into the owner's family and inherit his property or become a trusted advisor or military leader. The children of slaves were considered free. Initially, the Portuguese continued in this same vein, sending slaves back to Portugal as household servants or to sugar plantations on the islands off the coast of West Africa. However, in the 16th century, slavery took a different turn. The large plantations in the New World required massive numbers of laborers. The enslaved Native American people proved unable to withstand the grueling conditions. Essentially, they were worked to death. And so African slaves became the cornerstone of this new economy. Between 1500 and 1850, more than 12 million Africans were taken as slaves to the Americas. These Africans endured conditions among the worst that have ever been inflicted upon human beings. Large numbers of them were from Senegambia, although the region ranked behind Dahomey, the Niger Delta, and Angola in total numbers of slaves exported. This went on until 1848, when a new Republican government in France abolished slavery. The main departure point for the slave ships was Gorée Island off the coast of Dakar. Gorée Island changed hands repeatedly during the colonial period, from Portugal to Holland to France to England and back to France. But no matter the master, for 200 years it remained a center of the slave trade. Here Africans were held in slave warehouses before being shipped across the Atlantic on the dehumanizing Middle Passage. The Middle Passage was the brutal and horrific transportation of Africans across the Atlantic to the plantations of the Caribbean and Americas. Africans were captured and imprisoned in forts or barracoons on the coast before enduring the inhumane conditions of the Middle Passage, or the Way of Death. Tens of thousands of men, women, and children stayed in the slave houses of Gorée. Many never left the ship alive, and those who did faced a challenging fate on the other side of the ocean. In 1951, Gorée Island was declared a historical site, and its buildings were preserved for their historical value. Today it is an important site for African American tourists visiting Africa, but also for people from many countries. In 1978, it was named to the UNESCO World Heritage List, which states, "The island of Gorée is an exceptional testimony to one of the greatest tragedies in the history of human societies, the slave trade." Here you can see the door of no return, where many Africans were brought through to go to the ships to never return to Africa. Let's read about some resistance from the native Senegalese. Resistance to French domination was widespread in the Senegambian region. It was led primarily by marabouts, or religious leaders, who had replaced traditional leaders as local headmen. The most important of these was Al-Hajj Umar Tal, a Tukulor marabout. He returned from a pilgrimage to Mecca in 1833, fired with zeal to convert the pagans to Islam. After many years of preparation, he launched a jihad, or holy war, during which he forcibly converted a vast tract of Senegal and Mali before Louis Faidherbe, the colonial governor, finally crushed him. He is today remembered as an important freedom fighter despite the fact that much of his energy was directed against other Senegalese people. Lat Dior was another source of inspiration to Senegalese resistance. He became king of Cayor, the most important kingdom in the Senegal region, in 1862. Born animist, Lat Dior converted to Islam. Concerned about the construction of a railroad, Lat Dior dedicated himself to ridding the area of French colonialists. He continued a holy war against them until his death in 1886. There's a drawing of him right there. And this is Louis Faidherbe, the governor of French West Africa. This is the first, this is Mamadou Dia, the prime minister in 1962. This is the first president of Senegal, Leopold Sanghar. Let's read more about him. It says, Leopold Sédar Senghor was a product of mixed Serer, Fulani, and Malinke heritage. The son of a Serer trader, he attended a Catholic mission in the hopes of becoming a priest, but later decided that the priesthood was not for him. In 1928, he went to Paris on a scholarship to continue his studies. There he was struck by the importance of African influence on modern painting, a fact that led him to reconsider the significance of African history and culture. In the face of prevailing French precepts of African inferiority, Senghor became a major architect of the doctrine of negritude, which proclaimed the value of African culture and experience. As president, he adopted the doctrine of negritude as the basis for the government of Senegal, gradually revamping the institutions of the new country to better reflect the needs of its African population and replacing French personnel with Africans. His personal prestige helped establish Senegal's reputation as a progressive, stable, and democratic country during the early years of independence. Senghor developed stability and cooperation through strong ties with community leaders, offering favors in return for the votes of their communities. Although he sneered at what he called la politique politicienne, or politicians' politics, he was a skilled and clever politician himself and manipulated his opponents in order to achieve his aims. Senghor was a distinguished poet and is considered one of the foremost figures of Francophone literature. In his poetry, he expresses his feelings about France, Africa, and colonization. His collections include Chants d'Ombre, which means shadow songs, Hosties Noires, which means black offerings, Éthiopiques, Nocturnes, Lettres d'Hivernage, which means winter letters, La Poetry of Action, Conversation with Mohammed Aziza, and Ce que je crois, What I Believe. He helped found Présence Africaine, or African Presence, the Journal of African Francophone Culture. He's a very interesting man. This is about the Kassoumans problem. It says, since 1982, the Jola people of the Kassoumans have been in a state of armed rebellion against the government of Senegal. Led by the Movement of Democratic Forces in the Kassoumans, or MFDC, the people have called for independence of the Kassoumans area, which is geographically isolated from the rest of Senegal, being largely separated by the Gambia. The Jola population is also ethnically and religiously different from the Senegalese majority, and feel neglected by the Dakar government, particularly in areas of infrastructure development and economic opportunity. The rebellion was sparked by a revolt of lycée, or high school students, in 1981, followed by a larger demonstration in front of the governor's mansion in Ziguinchor. At that time, the Senegalese flag was replaced by the flag of the Casamance movement. The conflict elicited little international attention. For 3 decades, riots and armed attacks erupted almost every year, costing over time some 5,000 lives. Ceasefires were negotiated, but rarely held for very long. In addition, landmines laid by separatist rebels rendered about 80% of Casamance unusable. When Macky Sall was elected president of Senegal in 2012, he said national unity was his top priority. In 2014, a new ceasefire deal was struck between the government and the rebels and has since held, albeit with ongoing low-level conflict. The people in Casamance describe the state of affairs as neither war nor peace. And there's been a few updates to this conflict in 2021, which I talk about in my History of Senegal video. This is another president of Senegal, Abdoulaye Wade. And let's read about another terrible incident in Senegalese history. The Lejule Tragedy, Africa's Titanic. On September 26, 2002, Senegal experienced a national tragedy when the MV Lejule, a passenger ferry connecting Dakar to Ziguinchor, the Casamance capital, capsized off the coast of the Gambia. At the time, the ferry was a popular mode of transportation between the two cities because the ongoing separatist conflict in the Casamance had made the overland route dangerous. The disaster left 1,863 people dead, 346 more than on the Titanic, and only 64 people survived. The actual death toll might be even higher because so many passengers were unticketed and therefore unaccounted for. The sinking of the Jewel is considered the second worst non-military disaster in maritime history. The ferry ran into a storm at around 11 p.m. that evening and capsized in the rough seas. Perhaps more people might have survived, but the government rescue effort did not begin until the following morning, reportedly because radio operators were absent from their posts on the night it occurred. The ship was found to be greatly overloaded, a situation which was apparently routine, carrying far more people than its legal capacity of 44 crew and 536 passengers. It was also designated for travel only in calmer coastal waters and sank much farther out at sea. The ship was also said to be poor maintenance and lacking the emergency communication system used by ships all over the world. The wreck was never retrieved, and fewer than half of the victims' bodies were recovered. The Senegalese government closed the case in 2003, offering $22,000 per victim in compensation to victims' families. Several officials were fired, but no one was prosecuted. The government placed the blame solely on the captain, whose body was never found. Meanwhile, because some of the victims were foreigners, including 22 French nationals, international lawsuits continued for many years. Government. Look at this pretty boat. It says Esprit d'Afrique, which means the spirit of Africa. Painted in really pretty colors, the colors of the Senegal flag. This is the current president of Senegal, Macky Sall. And this is the National Assembly, apparently listening to a speaker from the International Monetary Fund in 2015. We have a poll worker taking some votes. And this is the presidential palace in Dakar. You can see the Red Guard standing watch. Economy. fishing boats. It's a really pretty picture. This is a peanut field. So Senegal has a large peanut industry, one of the largest exporters of peanuts in the world. And that's because it grows well in the climate, but also when the French decided to, give crops to farmers here to start their own farms, they gave them peanuts, which is very colonial of them. The environment. It says here this is an example of soil erosion and desertification in northern Senegal. And here we see some acacia trees, which are being used to plant the Great Green Wall, which I'm going to read to you in a few pages more about that project. And this is a really beautiful picture from the Neokolokopa National Park. Look at those colors. So lovely. So here we go, the Great Green Wall. The Great Green Wall began in 2005 as a breathtakingly ambitious project to fight the desertification in Africa. The problem was that the vast Sahara Desert that dominates much of the northern part of the continent was creeping southward into the Sahel region, turning formerly productive areas barren. The Sahel is the geographic zone where the Sahara Desert transitions to tropical savanna grasslands to its south. From northern Senegal in the west, the Sahel runs horizontally across the continent to the far north of Ethiopia. To hold back the mighty desert, leaders of participating African nations agreed to build a great green wall of trees. It was to be a 10-mile thick barrier of greenery stretching 4,350 miles from Senegal to Djibouti, a country in the Horn of Africa on the east coast. The project was undertaken with great enthusiasm. Its backers claimed it would become a new wonder of the world, the largest living structure on the earth, and one that would provide food and jobs for millions of people. Senegal got going quickly on the project, far ahead of some other nations, planting 9.9 million acres by 2016. But environmental fervor soon smacked up against some harsh realities. For one thing, the project had been launched without much of a scientific foundation. Some designated regions could not support the new trees and many saplings died. More than that, the concept had been based on a misunderstanding of the essential problem. The desert isn't actually advancing southward. Rather, the desertification of the region is being caused by a combination of climate change, overdevelopment, and unsustainable farming practices and other land management. It turned out there are other, better ways to restore the land. They include instituting innovative water management techniques, sustainable farming practices, and the cultivation of native crops and naturally occurring vegetation. Most importantly, the changes have to begin at ground level with farmers and other residents. Backed by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, and a $1.2 billion commitment by the World Bank, the Great Green Wall has evolved into a multi-pronged initiative to combat land degradation, desertification, and drought. The 21 participating countries are each pursuing their own national plans, adapted to their local conditions. The results, conservation specialists say, will be more of a mosaic of land use practices, rather than a barrier wall of trees. The vision may be less dramatic, but it holds a far greater promise of success. And here's some birds. Pelicans in the Juge National Bird Sanctuary. This says this is a crowd in Saint Louis waiting to discuss coastal erosion with the visiting Senegalese and French presidents in February 2018. And this is sadly Pau Beach in Dakar, which is covered in trash. Senegalese. Cute. Here we see a Wolof woman wearing very jewelry. Very colorful clothes. These are Fulani cattle farmers, also wearing lots of beautiful colors. Some really cool hats too. Malinke People Village near Tambacounda. You can see the thatched roofs, like the courtyard living. And some very beautiful dresses worn by women in Tuba. I like the pink one best, it's really pretty. Go. Lifestyle. More beautiful cloth, beautiful dresses doing traditional dance. Here's another village. This is a Badik village. Very cool little huts there. Cool in that they look neat, and I bet they're very cool inside. So this is on Goree Island, where you can see the old architecture versus the new, which we kind of have in San Francisco too. After the big earthquake, a lot of houses got destroyed. A lot were still standing and kind of got fixed up, so you can see like these old houses right next to these like brand new modern houses. It's kind of neat. I like how you see like the French Street sign there. Very like countryside France style building with this beautiful white modern building. So this section over here is about griots. Griots are a distinctive feature of West African life. Every important family once kept a griot, or Gyul in Wolof, to serve as family historian and public relations officer, and many still do. Listen to this book. Of course, now it doesn't do it. There we go. Anyway, the griot advised the family on matters of lineage and acted as a court advisor and entertainer. His or her chief function was to sing the praises of his patron. In return, the patron showered him with gifts. A griot prepared for his vocation by doing exercises to develop his memory and learning genealogies and histories of the great families, as well as learning to compose songs and play instruments. Griots remain an important part of Senegalese life. The older ones are typically illiterate. They often have to travel constantly in search of sponsors who are able to pay for their services, since few families can afford the luxury of a personal griot. However, there are still a few griots who remain attached to one family, particularly among the Tukulor nobility. Some griots work as publicists for political parties or politicians, composing and singing songs praising their patrons or ridiculing rivals. Women are also musical griots. In today's Senegalese society, they incorporate traditional Sufi poetry, ritual song, drumming, and praise singing with dance pop, hip-hop, and political activism. Let's see. This is at a Senegalese wedding. It says, this is the bride right here. A beautiful gold scarf. This is a young mother waving hello. That's nice. Let's read about the Family Code of 1972. The position of women in the eyes of the law is defined by the Family Code of 1972. The Family Code forbids repudiation, the traditional Muslim practice that allows a man to formally divorce his wife simply by declaring them divorced. Women are allowed to own property, and in a no-fault divorce, restitution can be demanded. The code recognizes official as well as de facto marriages, and monogamous as well as polygamous marriages. When couples marry, they are required by the family code to sign a legal document stating the form of marriage they intend to establish, that is either monogamy or polygamy. Once their choice is made, they cannot change their choice, even in the event of divorce. For example, if a couple who had opted for monogamy divorced, the man would not be able to enter a polygamous marriage after that. The family code also establishes some important limits on women's rights by making the man the head of the household. Many women feel that the code fails to protect them sufficiently against forms of sexual harassment, especially domestic violence. This is a medic checking up on this little girl. Here comes my cat. No. I've got a wax melt going over there. Please don't touch that. No. Don't touch that. It's fire. We've been over this. Alright, kitty, come on. You're in the shot again. We've talked about this. Come here. You can't just... I know it's sneezy, probably because you put your face in that wax melt. Come on, sweetheart. Come on. You gotta move your body. We're doing a video. I know. You're only doing this because you want to get snacks. You can't sit there. That's where I'm filming. You're such a brat. Come on. Come on. I know. I love you too. Come on. Come on, kitty. You're gonna have to move, little cat. Please don't fight me over this. Come on. No. Ouch. Ouch. Ow. Cat wars going on now. Cat, you have to move. This is not up for debate. You have to move. There you go. You can go lay on the bed, okay? There he goes. Okay. We talked it over, and we've decided that he's going to lay on the bed instead of on my desk or in my lap. It's hard having children. This is some children at school. It says it's an Islamic school. It's a madrasa. Azhar Madrasa in Tuba. I'm in love with this mosque. This is in Dakar. The colors are so beautiful. Oh my gosh. It's such a beautiful building. I've said this before in other videos, but there's like beautiful buildings and then there's beautiful places of worship. It's on like a whole other level. This is the Tuba Mosque, the biggest, grandest mosque in Senegal. And very, very holy. It contains the tomb of Amadou Bamba, a very important religious figure in the region. These information books, whenever it's an Islamic country, there's like a whole chapter on what Islam is. So here's a picture of the Kaaba in Mecca to show you what Mecca looks like. So here are some people going to the Great Mosque of Tuba. Very bright colors again, as you can see. And this is the St. Charles Borromeo Catholic Church on Gorée Island. Very old church. And here we can see, it says it's a sacred fetish outside of Bedik village where people practice traditional animist religion. Kind of belief still goes on there today. This is a really sad picture. It's medicinal amulets, but it's made out of like animals and animal parts. It makes me really sad. I'm not going to look at that too long. Language. Here's a boy very proudly showing off his handwriting. You can see here, this man's reading a sign in French about World War I, probably some kind of memorial. And here this map shows where the Wolof people live in Senegal, the majority people, and the widest spoken language in Senegal is Wolof, even though the official language of Senegal is French. Here you can see some newspapers, all in French it looks like. You can see this was during the Charlie Hebdo terrorist attack. The importance of greetings. Senegalese place great importance on greetings. Upon meeting someone, it is important to spend some time, maybe a good 10 minutes, greeting him or her in order to show respect. To pass directly to the business at hand, or to pass by with a simple wave of the hand, even if the other person is engaged in another activity, would be considered unbearably rude. In fact, the Senegalese who is angry with someone is likely to express his anger by refusing to greet the other person. This shows lack of respect or outright contempt for the other person and is treated as a great insult. A typical greeting conversation might go as follows: Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be upon you. And upon you too. Did you spend the night in peace? In peace, thanks to God. How are you? Oh, my friend, I'm here. How are the people of the house? They are there. How's your father? He's there. How's your mother? She's there. Do you have peace? Peace only, thanks to God. Inquiries about the health of the family and friends may go on for a considerable length of time, a practice that has given rise to jokes about greetings in which inquiries are made regarding the state of health of the family goat. The length of these greetings indicates the great importance placed on human relationships, particularly family, in Senegal. You can hear my cat causing more chaos in the background there. Sorry about that. These are some beautiful African drums. And here we see a beautiful jewelry market stall. Very, very gorgeous looking jewelry. Best kind of jewelry you find in places like these. So cool. So colorful. Look at all those colors. I love the colors of Senegal. Let's read about Wolof basket weavers. Carefully put the book back down. There we go. Weaving baskets is a skill that has been passed down through generations of Wolof women, and it's still considered specifically a woman's craft. The baskets are made using a coil style of weaving that makes the finished product especially strong and durable. Traditionally, the weaver would wrap thin strips of palm frond around jonax, a thick grass, to make the basket fiber, but today they use strips of plastic wrapped around the grass or cording. Sometimes the weavers use discarded prayer mats that have been unraveled for their materials. The resulting hampers, covered baskets, bowls, and rugs are colorful and very well made. Some of them feature geometric designs. A number of international non-profit organizations have worked with networks of rural Wolof women artisans to buy their crafts and sell them worldwide. These expanded markets provide a vital fair trade income for the women, who would otherwise be limited to selling at the local markets and roadsides. Really beautiful craft work there. Here we see some boys playing drums. The captain says they're nearly bigger than they are. This is Youssou N'Dour, who is by far probably the most famous Senegalese person today, famous musician. And this is Papa Ma, another famous musician. Let's read about Aminata Sofal. Aminata Sofal is best known for her novel La Grève des Battus, The Beggar Strike, which recounts the disastrous results after government officials attempt to rid Dakar of its beggars. L'Appel des Arènes, or The Call of the Arenas, is the story of a boy whose parents raise him outside his family and community. In 1997, Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts awarded Aminata Sofal an honorary degree in recognition of her literary work. There's a painter named Moore Guillet showing off his very beautiful paintings. It's glass art. Why it looks so vibrant. I think I like this one the best. And this is Ousmane Sembene, a writer and director. Children playing in the island of Caraban in the Casamance. For leisure. Some boys playing soccer with the tennis ball. Sometimes those are the best games when you don't have the right equipment and you have to make up new rules. Those are always so much fun when you're a child. Let's read about Lamb. The traditional Senegalese sport is wrestling, or lamb in Wolof, sometimes described as a combination of wrestling and judo. It is typical of traditional African wrestling. There are two types of lamb, with one of which wrestlers are allowed to hit one another with their hands, and a more acrobatic style that does not allow hitting. But lamb is not only a sport, it is also valued for its ceremonial aspects. Each wrestler is accompanied by his marabout. In a ceremony that precedes the match, the wrestler wears various kinds of amulets on his arms, legs, and waist, and dances around the arena to the music of drummers and singers. All of this ritual is intended to protect the wrestler against evil spirits and any witchcraft that might be used by other wrestlers. Wrestlers usually come from lower caste backgrounds and serve as champions of their ethnic group or region. Each wrestler tries to intimidate his opponent by boasting of his skill and past victories. Each brings with him an entourage of drummers and praise singers who build him up and denigrate his opponent. Long ago, wrestling matches were held at night or in the afternoon in the main square of the village. Accompanying the wrestling match was much singing, dancing, and storytelling. Today, lamb takes place mostly on Saturday or Sunday evenings, but it remains Senegal's national event. Look at his back muscles. It's amazing. Very strong. Let's see, these are Jola people dancing to a ritual that celebrates an initiation ceremony in manhood. Festivals. Celebrating Eid al-Fitr. Let's read about pilgrimages. Pilgrimages are an important part of Muslim life in Senegal. The most important of these is Magal, the annual pilgrimage of the Moorids. Magal celebrates the symbolic return of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, the founder of the Moorids, to the holy city of Touba, which he founded. Bamba was exiled by the French and spent his last years in Jorbel, unable to return to Touba. Magal, like other Muslim holidays, follows the lunar calendar. Each year, hundreds of thousands of pilgrims come to Touba, arriving by car, bus, train, and on foot. The focus of the festival is a night of prayer, either in the main mosque or with individual marabouts. Other brotherhoods also have annual pilgrimages, but much the same but smaller than Magal. Look at this mask. That's unreal. Let me bring it closer. That is the coolest. That's amazing. Oh, I love it. That's so neat. Let's read about another festival called Fanal. The Fanal festival takes place in Saint Louis during the Christmas season from December 21st to January 1st. It dates from colonial times when the principal religion of Saint Louis was Catholicism. Christmas Eve Mass was an important social event, and wealthy women would compete to see who had the richest gowns and jewelry. Because the gowns were quite long and heavy, the women brought pages to support their trains and also carry lanterns to light their way. During the service, the pages would hold their own competition outside the church to determine who had the most artfully constructed lanterns. Today, there are no more ladies in rich gowns, but the lantern competition has survived. Sponsored by local businessmen, the lanterns are built by clubs. Then the elaborate lanterns made of split bamboo, paper, and cardboard, silver foil, gilt, tinsel, and colored cloth are paraded through the streets of Saint Louis. The designs are spectacular in shapes of ships, airplanes, buildings, monuments, masks, and even replicas of mosques or a patron's house. I wish there was a picture. That'd be really cool. The food chapter. Getting some yummy apples. A fried acaria fritter. Looks really yummy. This is the inside and outside of soursop fruit. Kind of looks like dragon fruit in the middle. Kind of looks interesting. over here we have jollof rice, which is a very popular dish all across West Africa. Every country, region, what have you, has their own version of jollof rice, but yeah, very popular dish all over West Africa. Some beef cooking in a fire pit, it looks like. It's neat. This is the national dish of Senegal. It's like a stuffed fish with all of this like rice and veggies in there, and you traditionally eat it with your right hand. It's very rude in a lot of cultures to eat with your left hand. Chicken and onion sauce, poulet yassa. That's a lot of onions. That's more onions than I would use, but I'm sure it has like a million spices. Yeah. Habaneros, jalapenos. Oh, I bet it's good. Jus de bissap, which is red hibiscus petals, hot water, and sugar. So yummy tea. And that looks like the end of the book. So I thank you very much for watching. Let's flip a couple more pages. Ooh, it's a little loud, sorry. There we go. Thank you again for watching. I hope you found this video relaxing and educational. And I hope you have a very good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.